to The Collective, where every conversation ignites a new perspective. Join us as we delve into the journeys of remarkable individuals, explore the art of growth, resilience, and the power of a shared mission as we strive to be better together.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another awesome show of The Collective. I am pumped for this. It's been a little while. Wednesday we were talking the gold mine. Today we're going to be talking The Collective, and I am stoked for this. So while I am stoked for this, y'all should be too. Like the show, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, do all that good stuff, get your emails whenever we go live, which is of course Fridays for The Collective, Wednesdays for The Gold Mine. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, anything at all, by all means, put them up in the comment section. We can hit those throughout the show. And I want to hear your guys' opinions on The Collective, how you've seen it evolve, all your thoughts. So do hit me up throughout. If you haven't already, make sure you are locked into the reinforcement loop, get yourself signed up, get all the information from the week's show in case you missed one, as well as a little bit of brain candy from Sean Taylor himself. And other than that, I'm stoked we can get right into this, but I want to hit these comments first. Embada Jackson, Heath is locked in. Good to see you, Grey Dad Gear. Afternoon, gents. Good to see you as well. I am stoked. So I want to get your guys' first thoughts. Actually, yeah, let's just dive into first thoughts right off the bat. Seb, what are your first thoughts on The Collective now from when we started? Give us an overall.
Man, that was in my opinion, and my humble opinion, an incredible leap. An incredible leap. But I there wasn't a single aspect of The Collective that hasn't been worked on extensively over the course of the last couple of years. And because of the velocity with which you guys obviously hit the road with The Collective, which was an episode every day and doing all of the crazy stuff, I mean, the progression was exponentially quicker than it should have been, I think, and that includes all of us as well. I mean, just having these incredible conversations with these incredible individuals over the course of these last couple of years. I mean, there was an incredible sort of refinement, so to speak, of some of the basic concepts that fundamentally are still here. But you can now, if you watch an old episode, and that's pretty hard to do if you ever have. If you've never watched the new one, it's totally bearable. It's awesome to listen to the conversations. But when you're engaged in the conversations and you look back and you focus on yourself, I'm not focusing on anybody else. I'm focusing on me. Like how was I delivering, or how was I addressing certain issues and things? And it's interesting, to look at it with a bit of a step back, so to speak, and see where we all sort of evolved. I do believe that The Collective, and I will say this until the day that I'm 6 feet under, I do believe that The Collective is still the best kept secret. And we're not trying to keep it secret, but it stays a little bit secret. So we're going to have to find ways, and we all know that those are the things that we need to work on to bring it to a wider audience. And I still believe that this is going to happen by virtue of a couple of things that we got lined up. And I do believe that people will seek all of the episodes at one point. And, there is nothing more gratifying, or there's nothing more interesting for somebody that you just discovered to know that they have 400 plus episodes. So if and I remember, because this sort of happened to me with Jocko, and, he was probably at 69, but even to find 69 episode of somebody you just discovered is very exciting, because you're not running out of material. You don't have to wait for, a week or two. And you expect you expect an evolution, right? So when you go back to number 1, you expect an evolution. And when you hit number 15 and number 60 and number 100. And so I think there's a really exciting time coming up for The Collective, as soon as the sort of the wider audience catch wind of the incredible value that the guests are bringing in this operation. I still believe that, and I'm going to hold on to this until the day I go, because I do believe that there will be catalysts that will make The Collective sort of seen by many, and I believe that once the value is understood fully, we're going to really grasp the value around this show, but the work that was put in and how much how much the velocity that you guys engaged with originally really caused that sort of ripple effect. Anyway, I digress. I do believe in the show. I love the show, not because I'm on it. If I'm not on it, I love the show. Even more probably.
I love
but
it.
but I mean, it is an incredible show, and it's gonna get its day where people will benefit from.
I agree. And to that point, I like you brought up Jocko. I think it was episode 300 around when I found Jocko, and then I went right back to number 1, and I still haven't caught up because he's in almost 500 now. And interestingly enough, you're coming up on episode 150-ish. I think you're 130, 140 right around now. Makes you the unofficial co-host / official co-host. So I'm digging it, man. This is why I brought you on for this particular conversation as well, is the fact that like you have been around and you've seen it all from the get-go, from the inside as well as the outside. So it's a really great look at it. Shaun, how about yourself?
Well, like Seb said, it's been quite a journey, and we've improved a lot. We've learned a lot. It started off rough, and here we are. And to Seb's point, he does believe in the show, and it's because of Seb that the show is still in existence. Because there was a couple of times I was like, I'm out. Screw this. Forget it. I hate social media. This is nonsense. And I used to say I hate social media, but now I wish I could retract those statements. In fact, there's a lot of things I wish I could retract from show number 1 till show 1 million. And so social media is important. It's a great way to get positive messages out. It's a great way to connect with good people who are doing good things. And it's our job to just get better at it day after day. And I do love getting better at things for sure. But this one has been particularly challenging. I've fought it tooth and nail most of the time to just stay in it. And I guess that takes some conviction. I'd like to say this, that I'd like to round out my opening comments with, if you're in social media for the right reasons, and if you're a good person, it's going to take a lot of conviction. It's got to take a lot of discipline. It's got to take a lot of focus, and your why has got to be strong. Because if I didn't have the conviction to keep doing what I'm doing, I'd quite happily tap out of social media. Like this morning, I was putting up a little social media clip from smacking the heavy bag around with spinning back kicks. And, I never used to put that stuff up. No one knew that I did spinning back kicks for like the last 40 years. But I've started putting that stuff up because I think it's important that people get to know me a little bit better, but more importantly, to inspire other people. Someone hit me up just this morning before I went down to hit the heavy bag and said, "Bro, I just started hitting the heavy bag again because of you." Well, freaking fantastic. You know what? I hope you're doing better spinning back kicks than I am by the end of the month. And that's what it's really about for me, is trying to encourage other people to pick up the pace, pick up their game, do better. In fact, just before I came into the show, granted, I was like 3 seconds late. But what I was doing was I was just writing down a little thing here. Being the first doesn't make you the best. And that came about because I'm having to write a bio right now. I've written a little bit of stuff. Seb has got me doing homework. That's what happens with the collective, by the way. You get homework as well. So Seb has got me on some homework. Seb had laid out a great biography or a bio for me for the book. And I struggle with writing like nice things to say about myself. Like I just don't like writing them. And so Seb has sent me this, not a skeleton bio, but a well fleshed out bio that I've got to add a few more things. I was like, oh man, I hate this stuff. I hate writing about myself in a positive light. It seems braggadocious. And the reason that I wrote this, being the first, doesn't necessarily make you the best. I was looking for key words to put into the bio. And as it turns out, I was reminded by someone at Operation Pegasus Jump that I'm the first double tabbed sniper. So I was the first operational deck commander as a special operations sniper and also Canadian Army sniper. The first. That'll never happen again in history. But does that make me a big deal? No, it doesn't. Does it mean that I'm the best sniper in the world? Absolutely not. Does it mean that I did everything? not even close to it. But there's always got to be a first. And the first doesn't make you the best. It just means that you tried really hard at something and that you were at a confluence in time-space continuum, or you were in a spot in time that things lined up precisely for you to be the first, not be the man, but be the first. And so that's an important distinction for me that I'm trying to wrap my head around right now on the bio. And so being the first doesn't make you the best, but there's always a day one for everything. And in this show, day one was us trying our best. But when I look back on it, it's like, man, we were stinking up the place. And so again, being the first does not make you the best. On day one of the show, we were at our worst, and now we're moving towards our best. So I'm just trying to establish a couple of little points there that maybe we can play around with, but I thought it was worth mentioning.
I love it. And the first day, the funny thing part is, because I had my own podcast for a number of years before that, the first day I thought I was good to go. Like I was just, we're good. Don't worry. I'll take care of everything and manage it. And yeah, I've looked back at the first couple episodes a couple of times now, and oh man, it's somewhat painful to watch, but that's part of the progression, which is what I love about this. Now, I want to hear again what you guys think about it. So if you're watching right now, hit us up. Let us know what you think of the collective from day one till now. Dan C jumped in here and said, "Good morning, gentlemen. Let's kick some ass for sure." Great Ed Gear jumped in and said, "I love how much the collective has grown these last few years. I know for myself, I have grown because of it, even if it's 1% better every day." And that is a beautiful point. We also got Roadrunner 1422, which is Brandon on the Instagram side. He's jumped in here and said, "Hi guys, good to see you, buddy." And oh, I got Laird and Cohen John in there as well. Interesting. Good to see everybody. The question I have for you guys, based on what Shaun was saying, you know, one of the first things that we talked about when we got the show idea to fruition was, Shaun, you came up with the rules, the first rules that we put into place, and that was no swearing, no politics, no race, no religion. 4 simple rules that have kind of defined the show. Now, we've gotten religious adjacent. We've talked about spirituality. We've talked about faith. We've talked about a lot of things, but we haven't dove into religion specifically since we started. We have not done politics. We've gotten politically adjacent on a few things, right? Like it's, I'm finding it's really enriching to be able to try to talk about a subject without talking about a subject, if that makes any sense. And I want to ask you guys if you found the same with the institution of those 4 rules have made it more enriching to kind of engage in conversations, specifically not talking about stuff. Seb, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, because it's hard when you don't have a baseline of what it would have looked like if we did, right? So if we did in the first year and did the second year, then you have a tracking history that's kind of easy to draw upon. But I will say this: there's some. I believe that we could have had conversations about all of those things, and it would have been regulated properly just because of who we are. I do believe that it would have brought a inherent certain level of toxicity. It just would have happened. There is no question that that's the case, in my opinion. I think that there is a lot of that going on in a lot of platform, and if you are inclined to have these conversations, say about politics, they're everywhere. They're dime a dozen, right? And it's not that there's no value in them. There certainly is value in them, but that's a very specific niche. And for me, I probably wouldn't have been involved in a 150 episode if that was the case. You know, just because I would have been banging my head on the wall. That's not to say that we want to, close our eyes and put our head in the sand like ostrich and pretend that everything's peachy. But the fact is, spheres of influence. What do we have a direct sphere of influence over, and how can we bring things to light that are moving the needle forward? Because we can have all these engaging conversations that are accurate or interesting and of the occasion, but in order for us to move the needle forward and get out of that victimhood loop and do all the things that are pretty toxic in the veterans community, I think that was a good move for us to be staying away from these subjects. Now, we have skirted the subjects from time to time in various ways, and I think that is an important part of having parameters. It's like having policy. You need to know when you can ride the line ever so slightly. But if you don't have a line, then you're completely out of policy at some point, and before you know it, you're a million light years away from what the original intent was. And so I do believe that, as frustrating as it can be for some individuals that wish that we would give our opinions about a variety of different contentious subjects, we're moving the needle forward in the way that we are moving the needle forward. And there's no apologies to be made for that at all. There's plenty of platform you can go on and have all these conversations. The collective was different, and it still is different.
Bam. I love it. The collective is different. And yes, it is. There are lots of times, and I am more than happy when I've met people on the outside of the digital world. I can discuss politics at that point in time. I swear at that point in time as well. I swear a lot less in real life because of this show as well, though, which has been a nice little benefit. One little comment before we jump into Shaun's thoughts on this is the progression of the collective over time is a testament to its ethos. Continual improvement, stumbling, getting back up, always forward, from Bada Jackson. Love that. Shaun, thoughts?
Yeah, I dig that. Thanks for that comment. So, when those 4 rules were set, I think way, way back in the day, I referred to a story about my Uncle Kent, who's long since passed. And great guy. I was a young pup growing up in England, and he was cutting my hair. And he was a barber. I was sitting in his barber chair, and that haircut was epic because it was my first proper haircut, And so he's making it good for me, and et cetera, et cetera. And he said, "Hey, there's 3 rules at the dinner table that you shouldn't break." And he's talking about like kind of lifelong wisdom as a British barber. And you know how it is. Back in the day, an old school, old fashioned barber talked to a lot of men. Am I wrong? I mean, like thousands of men, working men in the tough part of England, by the way. And this was the wisdom that he passed on to me. No race, religion, or politics at the dinner table. And I thought, oh, weird. Okay, whatever. I was young. I didn't know, but it kind of stuck in my head, just a little hook. And I've kind of played with that a lot since then. And I think they're good rules. And they're rules that will help you shape your life to some degree without knowing what your life is all about, And so I didn't know what the show was going to be about. On day 1, I had no idea what we were going to be. I just knew that we were going to try and do good for the world, etc. And so needed some rules. And those rules were my Uncle Kent's rules. And I just thought that'll get us heading in the right direction. Well, as it turns out, the direction is, got us here. And we could look back on that path and all the twists and turns and how it wended its way here. Well, here we are. And so those 3 rules got us here without knowing what day 2 was going to be. And so those rules will never change. Those 3 rules will be in existence on this podcast forever. However, they'll loosen up a little bit because, as an example, Laird & Co. is hopping into the podcast a few minutes ago, and we've had him on the show. He's a great dude. I love having that guy on the show. And he is more than religious adjacent, as is Seb. 2 religious men that we could have an entire podcast about respectfully and cool and move the needle. And we probably will. But we'll dance on that one. We'll dance a fine line on how to do it right. What we won't do is throw the rule away and just blindly step into a conversation and unleash the hounds of hell in a conversation without some parameters, because that's for other podcasts. Here's a fact. I never wanted this show to rely on drama. I never wanted it to rely on contentious words as its core. I don't mind throwing out some contentious ideas, but I don't want the very central pillar of the show to be contention. I don't want it to be yelling and finger wagging and making the audience feel like they need to move to a different country, or they need to change their religion, or they have to change their politics, or they've got to start eating something that they just ain't into. Like, I'm not that guy to tell you to do those things. I'll have opinions, but will never have a podcast that tells you how to rule your life in race, religion, or politics.
Yeah. I think the very first show, we hadn't discussed swearing either, and then I just swore to storm through the whole thing, and afterwards you were like, "Hey, about that, let's not do that anymore." And
I
it's
believe I said for the kids.
for the kids,
For the
exactly.
kids.
And
Because
that's yeah. Go ahead.
Seb was already saying, like, back then, like, people will listen to this years from now. And I just thought, I don't want my boys listen to all the swears, because I don't swear in my house and I don't swear around my boys. And why would I swear around them on a podcast? And so if it's good enough for in my living room, it's good enough for the interwebs.
And yeah, what do you got, Seb?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a sort of urban misconception when it comes to swearing. It makes you more authentic, or some sort of weirdness like this, and it can, if that's a sort of a overcompensation that you like. And I'm not being judgmental here, because I have sworn plenty since I was very, very young. But at the end of the day, when we look at a show like this that's looking at us improving as human beings, you don't start leaving realms behind. Oh, I'm just going to improve here and there, but I also not here and not here and not here. So we're all trying to strive to be better. We all had to work hard not to swear. There's plenty of times where it was coming organically and I was just about to do it and I had to hold myself back. But what it led me, Chance, is just like you, it diminished tremendously the amount of swearing that I do. And now that I'm trying to not do it at all, these 4 years of doing that has just been incredibly beneficial in doing that. And so if you're looking at elevation, you don't start siloing and picking and selecting the things that you want to elevate in. I truly believe, and I've believed that since I was a professional working out in a field where it's very easy to get yourself swearing, and have the boys do a professional operation at the very professional level, and all of a sudden somebody's being asked to get to get on the ground, and there's some sort of F word being thrown in there. And I'm like, this goes against everything we stand for as professionals. I don't want to hear this. I want to hear some controlled aggression. And and the boys were buying into it. Like, they understood what that meant. But you can literally, and I want you to pay attention next time somebody does that, has a very, very valid argument, and they start swearing all around the argument. For me, it almost becomes a write-off. Now, I have enough discernment to pick the nuggets from what they are saying that are of value. But if the person has the same argument in a non-sweary, fashion, it bears a lot more weight. And not only that, you can also pass it on to a lot more people. You can also repost, and you can also have the kids watch it, and all of those things. So you bring value to a ton more people. It just doesn't make you more authentic. It just doesn't. You're either authentic or you are not. If swearing becomes an overcompensation mechanism in order for you to present yourself as authentic, then there's inauthenticity in this, And so for me, this has been it's been a challenging rule. And I think I speak on behalf of every guest that's ever been here, because we're a lot of us are from the military context, or from contexts that, lend themselves to swearing at times. And I do believe that having all our high-level guests focus on not doing it has been beneficial for them as well. And I'd love to have him here to corroborate that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with this. The one beautiful thing that I've noticed, even when people do swear on the show, because it does happen, is that it kind of perks people up a little bit. Everyone's just like, oh, wait, we crossed the line. And then it kind of settles back down. And I find it amazing that something as simple as not swearing, because swearing is very liberal in the military. Let's put it that way. It is done as almost a comma and an exclamation mark, just for the sake that it can. But the little discipline, the little grip on yourself, because I see these things as guidelines rather than hard and fast rules, right? Like, I still swear, but when I do swear now, people pay attention. Like, it's not a normal enough thing that it's just a write off. And I think that's part of it. So I just want to grab a couple comments here. Dan C. We can all debate topics as adults. Unfortunately, once you put your life on the interweb, the armchair podcouchers like to create things that aren't there. Religion and politics are wicks for them. And absolutely, it's really easy on a soundbite to misconstrue things, to miscontext, to not understand what the conversation was about, and then just throw it in on something else. So I'm 100% down on that. Brandon Chase jumped in here, said, "Hi guys, good to see you." He says, "I swear every now and again, put me in jail again." Yeah, and Stuart 904, good to see you. Evan says, "Completely agree, Seb." Percent. Shaun, you got any thoughts on any of this?
Yeah, just I'm not throwing anyone who swears under the bus. Like, as of this moment, I love the swears. In fact, as I talk out loud in my head, there's adjoining swear words sometimes. Because I don't know, I love it. It's an art. It's actually a beautiful poetry if you know how to swing it right. And if you're in the right company, as an example, if you look at someone and give them an F bomb with that look, man, that can move the needle a 1,000,000%. And so, but if you overuse it, what it'll do is someone will be yawning the moment that you drop an F bomb. So, like everything in life, it's how liberal or not you are with your resources. And again, I'm not immune to the swears because I loves them. But when Seb and I were last together in Cardston, we sat down to do some more recording for the book. And I think we're in the first session, and we're just settling down, getting our papers all organized, trying to appear important. And we just started bantering back and forth, and Seb just dropped right into it. He dropped into a few swears, and I was like, "Oh, we can't start like this." Because that would have been us for 10 days, all the swears. We would have made his office our own little private Idaho. You know what I'm saying? It would have been just me and Seb, the magnificent swear universe, the pocket universe, as Chance likes to call it. And so, but, you know, if it's easy to let it slide, it's easy to let it happen when you're in the right company, when you're comfortable with your brohemo. It's like, okay, you know what? It is kind of a rule, but we're both understanding of the rule. Let's give this one, like, let's put it off to the side for a few days. But we both knew that that wasn't going to work. And so we just shut it down right away. Like, no one had to bark at anyone. I wasn't barking at Seb. Seb wasn't barking at me. We just kind of looked at each other and said, yep. And then we got on with the program. But that's how easy it can be. It's if you're with the right people, it's easy to fall back into patterns that feel normalized, that feel like this is the right rhythm, this is the right spirit, this is the right energy for this moment. But if you try it a different way, maybe that's the right energy, maybe that's the right frequency for the moment. So again, defaulting back to the swears sort of robs you of the blank slate of the future that you've maybe not played in before.
You know what this reminds me of? At Seb, you got something? Yeah. Is the banner at the top, every moment do your best every day. And if what you're working on is to swear less or to not swear at all, particularly in a show, it takes thought process through every moment throughout this whole time. Like, I have to be consciously aware of what it is I'm saying, which I think most people don't have to be. You said it, you get comfortable. You start to let the guard down a little bit. You start to take the effort, the doing your best in that moment. You drop that effort back just a hair, and then it becomes more, and then it becomes more, and then you start sliding down that slope. Because that was one of the arguments actually right at the very beginning when we first started was, if we start now, we get a bunch of army guys all together, and you allow one or two, the show's over. The show transcript would just be a lot of F's across the board. Mike Dennis jumped in here. Is there an unedited version of the book? That would be pretty funny to see. And I want to talk about that little bit of slippery slope and the every moment do your best, and where that idea came from. Why do you think that we latched onto it so hard and like really have been pushing this idea since the beginning? Shaun, what do you think?
Because I was just saying it a lot. And it was usually starting like this. Just freaking do your best, man. Freaking do your best. and I was replacing the F-bomb with frickin'. And so, which is kind of a cheat. I know. I'm not practicing what I preach sometimes. But I just said it a lot. Just got to do your best. Do your best in the moment. Don't worry about how it's going for you. Just do your best, man. Just do your best today. Do your best tomorrow. Did you do your best yesterday? I just got tired of saying it, so it became a thing. In fact, the moment that you kind of put two and two together, Chance, you started chirping about let's make it a T-shirt, and I was like, oh, let's just put it at the top of the screen. How about that? And so it was Chance's idea to put the label at the top, by the way. But he kind of grabbed these little quotes, and they're not quotes per se. They're sort of the frequency of the show, the spirit of the show, the soul of the show, as it were. He just started like putting two and two together and recognizing certain things were being said a redonkulous amount of times, and so it became a thing. We never sat down at any boardroom meeting. We never sat down with a whiteboard. We never sat down with a town hall. These things just evolved. They showed up. They appeared by themselves. And by themselves, I mean like the magic of the universe by themselves. That little thing at the top didn't exist a few years ago. And now it's a thing because it's been said so many times by the right people at the right time. And so none of this has been a master class in master programming. It's a master class in letting things evolve over time and letting them appear.
I dig that. Seb, your thoughts?
I do. You know, of a lot of things that can eventually be relegated to autonomous system in the hands and feet skill department, even with those things that are at one point autonomous, if you stop doing them, eventually they will no longer be autonomous. They will get out of that, and you will have to start all over again, and you will have to get yourself into a perfect practice makes perfect type scenario so that you can have autonomous things, you know. But when you start looking at performance or professionalism, there is no such things because there's so many realms involved in this. It's a conscious decision. It's not an accident. You're not professional by accident. You're not performant by accident. There's a lot of conscious things that are happening here. And I think that just like anything else, just like positive reframing in the case of adversity, just like all of those things are not things that you acquire and you can just move past and not think about them again. No, because you're going to have to use the voice of reason and the cognitive side of you to connect to reality when something happens, to remind yourself of how you should be conducting yourself in the scenario that you are, you know, under, whether that's adversity or anything. We all have the propensity to slide back to the things that we are, from a primal standpoint, almost programmed to do, you know, and not just from a primal standpoint, from an experience standpoint, from a knowledge, skills, and ability standpoint, all of those things. So I think that a big misconception of people that are doing well, say overall, they can look at their life and say, I'm doing fairly well in terms of wellness, in terms of resilience, in terms of my ability to deal with adversity, all of those things, is to think that somehow is just easier for them. That's taking the efforts that are being put in willfully away from them, for one, but it also gives you an excuse for being mediocre without having to try hard, right? So I think that a statement like this just reinforces the fact that all of these things take work, and that work has to be done daily. You every time you wake up, you start all over again. And if something creeps into your mind and anxiety start, you know, filling your body and doing all of the things, and you know you have to go into exploration, then you have to take steps to get into exploration. Then you have to take steps to positively reframe whatever it is that's going on. Then you have to do all those things cognitively. And so having a banner such as "Do your best in the moment" is incredibly powerful as a reminder that none of those are going to become autonomous. You're going to have to do that willfully. And I say it, and I will say it, you know, until I'm blue in the face. The world and this journey that we're on, it isn't a playground. It's a battleground. It's not a playground. Stop looking at it like a playground. There's so much that we need to consistently fight our primal ways and the you know, the things that go against the things that we should be doing, and all of the things. Like, we're just faulty creatures in a faulty world. And as a result of that, we have to cognitively engage in that process. And that is one way to do it.
I dig it. I dig it. The you got me thinking. The fact that excuse me, the little pocket universes, the little things that we try to create in and of ourselves. The benefit of this show is that it's a shared pocket reality. I want to live in a world where people live by these things. Every moment, do your best every day. They have these little mantras that keep them working. And I love the fact that you brought this up, that it's not an autonomous deal. There is a natural entropy to things, right? There is the degradation of everything at all times. And it is a fight. I love that you made it a battleground. I'm just digging this. Shaun, you got any thoughts?
I do. So, faulty creatures in a faulty world in a battleground situation. And I've referred to it as the battle space. And so that's no detraction from what Seb just said. I like I like the idea of being a faulty creature in a faulty world in a battle space. And here's why. Because there's part of me that makes me believe that I'm here to fix it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can be faulty in a faulty world, which I believe I am. I'm faulty for sure. I've made all kinds of mistakes and I'll make more, and I run my life imperfectly because I'm imperfect. So I'm a faulty creature in a faulty world. But I like the idea. Somehow there's part of me, and I don't know where I learned this, if I was born with it, if I was taught it, whatever. If somehow it flashed into my brain about a minute ago, I like the idea of being faulty in a faulty world and fixing things. I like fixing things. I like making the world better. And that doesn't mean that that's what I'm here for. It just means that it satisfies me to improve someone's lot in life. I like helping. I like improving. And that's why when we were talking earlier about how, the 3 rules, don't want to really deviate into, deviate is a fun word that we could play with, deviate into race, religion, and politics. The reason that I don't want to do those kind of things is because we're not really fixing anything by doing that. What we're doing is we're spreading the division. We're spreading the backsliding to some degree. I feel like it's not fixing things, it's making things worse. And so there it is. There's a fine line between being helpful and being hurtful. And if you move too far into the waving your fist or slam it down on the table and pointing your finger at everyone else, if you're doing that a lot, you're not helping, you're hurting. And so I try to, in social media nowadays, I try to do it better than I did when I first started. And that is, I try to ride a fine line between being helpful while moving someone further down the path of having a better life. And that isn't easy at all. But it is important to realize that if you've been in the game of service, first responder, Leo, military, a variety of other careers that serve, if you've served in the past and now you're sitting here listening to this thinking like, hang on a sec, I'm flawed, but I can help other people. There it is. That's all you need to lock into today. You can stop listening to the podcast. Just frickin' find a way to help someone else and not help yourself while you're helping that other person. Just focus on them, help them, and see where that takes you today. And build off of that. And a month or 2 from now, I think what you'll find if you focus on being helpful, that a lot of your problems will start to disappear. A lot of your concerns will start to be not as concerning. You'll be more concerned about the people around you than concerned about your own nonsense. And that's what'll move you further away from your own victimhood, as it were, to help others that perhaps are locked in their victimhood. You can feel like a bit of a victim, but go and help someone who is actually a victim and see how that helps you. So there's lots of ways to spin this little moment that we're talking about. But honestly, I do just want to reiterate that I love the fact that I'm sort of flawed, but I get to try to fix my flaws to some degree. But help others as I'm doing it.
I love that. I wrote down satisfaction in a job well done. And I think most people that live the service life, as you say, I think that's what it comes back to, is that like we have a satisfaction in being able to do something about something. Like we can fix a problem, we can put a wall up, we can go help someone out of a burning building. Like we get to do the thing to help. There's a physical response to that. And I think, honestly, I think it's in everybody. That little bit of service is in everybody. It's just once you figure out how to apply it. And I think for some of us, we apply it through grand gestures like the military or police or things like that. We can give our life for things, and other people do it in smaller ways. They volunteer at a local kitchen. They help out their neighbor. They mow the old lady's lawn that's 2 streets down. But there is there's a little negative side on this too, because you can take that too far. You can so engage with everybody else's problems that you disengage with your own, so that you don't fix your problem, so that you just compound negative experiences on negative experience because you're helping other people. And I just want to touch on your guys' thoughts on that too, because it can be a pretty fine line between serving your community and making it at your expense rather than out of your desire. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we can take this in every realm of the human experience. I mean, think about having the ability to laugh at yourself, for example. How many people have been discriminated against that are so good at laughing at themselves, and that self-deprecation was a survival mechanism. I'm going to make all the fun about me as I possibly can so that you don't have the power to do it over me. Right. And so those things are very, very common. And so what we're talking about is a concept that we've discussed, I would say 475 episodes. Balance. Really, it's all about balance. And so and how do you find out? Well, you find out by being curious, and you find out by exploring, and you find out by being introspective and seeing how you're feeling and how you engage. This whole thing, I mean, why are we even here? Like, obviously we got something to do. So, and that something to do is probably get better at things and try to evolve in this journey called life. And so, yes, we should be engaging in a way, reassessing, introspecting, seeing if it works for us or not, or how it made us feel, or how it sort of materialized. And then we want to strive to do it better. So next time I'm going to engage with a little bit more reasonableness, or a little bit more sort of holding my space, so to speak. I'm going to start taking the chagrin or the adversity of the world on my shoulders and become Atlas and start crumbling under its weight. I have to do a little bit better at that. And so this is the beauty of life. It never ends. It never ends. Like life does, obviously, but the journey, for as long as you're alive, you can always refine everything. And how exciting is that? If that doesn't excite you, I don't know what does. Refining things so you slowly but surely are moving forward and backwards and forward and backwards, but you didn't stand there watching yourself live life as a third party, as if you were watching a black and white movie until it's over. Les Brown has a quote that I really like. He always says, some people die at 35 and don't get buried until they're 75. And that's true. It's so true. I think that life, with all of its ups and downs, is such an incredible journey. I don't care how hard it is. There's always some incredible things happening over time. And if nothing happens, then you get to grow if you have the right mindset, regardless of what's happening and how dark it gets. And so having that sort of almost built-in purpose to a certain extent. So there's a lot of things we talk about purpose all the time, but what about fundamentally? There's purpose in that too. So for me, I just, if we had it wrapped up and everything was good to go, like, why are we even here? I don't know. Spiritually speaking, there's some off with that, to me anyways.
I like it. That's a mic drop moment. Shaun, you got any thoughts?
I do. So as part of this conversation, again, the rules established. We're not going to dive too deeply into religion, but I do have to bring up a point because it's sort of tangential, but it is in parallel with what Seb is talking about right now. And that is what drives you in this moment in respect to spirituality or perhaps religion. And so I'd said to a guy out on the drop zone, Pat, PJ Miller, megapixel sniper. Anyway, we were standing on the drop zone and we had some pretty deep conversations in the time that we were hanging out together in Campbell River. And the subject came up of the afterlife or religion or what does it all mean? Why are we even on this drop zone, brah? Is kind of our conversation. And as it turns out, Pat and I see things to some degree in a similar fashion. Now, I'm not going to build out the whole spiritual journey that we were chirping about, but I'll loosely say this, and I'm loosely defining it. I'm not going to throw in any details because it would just take us in a different direction. Loosely defining it. As I sit here right now, I'm doing my best, and here's why. Because Shaun before me, like if I'm reincarnated Shaun, the Shaun before me, a couple hundred years ago or whatever the case is, in another life, I want to believe that that dude was doing his best to put me here. And if he hadn't have done his best, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in, let's call it a lesser life, whatever that means to anyone who's listening out there. What does a lesser life mean? It doesn't mean that you suck. It just means that it's different. Maybe not as much potential. Maybe it's harder. Maybe it's easier. Whatever. A lesser life. And here I am in this life, the right life for me in this moment. And so it's my job to frickin' kick that ass, to do good for the future Shaun, to set him up for a better life. What does better life mean? Does it mean the unicorns fly over the sun? Nope. It just means a better life, a different life, a better life than this version. And that better life might start off like this, freaking insanely hard. And then it's that other Shaun's job to figure it out. And hopefully he figures it out based on the hard work that I've done. And then as he figures it out, several years later, he's setting up the next Shaun. That's the way I see it. It's generations of setting up the next person. Now, we can take Shaun, the proxy, the future Shaun, and replace him with anyone. Seb, Chance, PJ, whoever. That's kind of how I see the world. And again, loosely. We could put religion to this. We could put Zen Buddhism. We could put whatever. Stoicism. Throw in some word, a label. You can throw all of those things at what I'm saying, and parts of them will make sense. Parts of them will relate to what I'm stating. Parts of religion and spirituality will synchronize up in what I'm explaining, and it will make sense to some degree. But how I've created my own belief on this is unique to me. And as it turns out, it's unique to Pat. And we had enough commonality that we could have that conversation about what drives us forward in a spiritual way. And so these kind of conversations on DZs are not normal. Like, I didn't have 1,000 of those. I had a couple of them. And Pat was one of them on spirituality and religion. But that's why I love the collective, because I feel comfortable talking about it right now. I feel comfortable putting the idea out for others to chew on. I like it because I know that Seb down in the bottom right corner there is like, he's got his spin on it. And his spin is more educated, more structured, more aware than mine is. My understanding of these kind of things has been through the lens of the world. But I haven't deeply sat down and structurally considered it through a deeper study. I haven't done the deeper study. I've been more of an observer than a studier of these things. And so that's where this conversation is going to go next. When the mic flips over to Seb, Seb is going to throw in his piece that is going to round out some of my ideas and evolve them, improve them, put the Sebness on them that is going to make me tomorrow think about things just a little bit differently. And will that make my world a little more sparkly, a little more brighter? Will it make me wake up in the morning and want to jump out of bed just a bit faster? I don't know. I'll know tomorrow. But these things, these conversations that we're having right now, that's what shapes tomorrow to some degree. And that's what shapes your next life. But I'll leave that for another time.
You know, when we first started, you and I would come out of the shows and be like, man, that was like getting a firmware upgrade. Like, we just sat down and I feel upgraded now. And I still do. We just don't say it after the show anymore. But it's still, every time we finish a show, I'm like, man, I learned this changed my thought process on that. To that point, I just wrote down a window into a different reality. I think this is upgrading my view of the collective on the fly right now. Because earlier I said it was like a shared reality, like a shared pocket universe that we all can kind of enter into. And I think now this is a really good thought for me, is that it's actually just a window into each of our realities. So when I get a moment, or I have a guest on the show and we start talking about any particular thing, I'm just creating the window for other people to gain some knowledge, some information. It's not really so much a shared reality as it is like a chosen window into another person's reality for that moment to then try to learn from and try to build on it. It's the concept of the community and all the people out there that are part of the collective and will come up and shake your hand and stuff like that. It's super cool to then have it in 3D, to have them in actual reality. And it's a very interesting thing to play with. Zeb, you got any thoughts going on?
Yeah, man, the old constructivist approach, right? Like, that's what we should strive for, really. I mean, it's cool, man. I just love it when people come to me and they say, although I disagree with you on this, that, and the other thing, it made me think about what I do agree with. And it made me question, my own biases, and it made me look around, and it made me broaden my horizon. And we're still disagreeing, but thank you for helping, kind of thing, and that's precisely what we're doing that for. This isn't about dogma, dogmatically impose our reality onto others. And certainly, if somebody wants to have a conversation about how I feel or the work that I've done and all those things, I'm in 100%. But even if I do that, and even if I spent 3 months going over the stuff that I found through willful research or investment or whatever the case is, I still wouldn't expect that person to necessarily take on what it is that I'm giving them. But at the very least, they will make an informed decision after putting in the work. Like, this isn't, a thing where there's so many people out there walking and spewing all kinds of words about all kinds of things. They've never done a single day of work. You have no idea what you're talking about. You just don't, right? And so I think that that's the risk of being dismissive of certain things when you haven't spent the time looking into them. Now, even if you spend the time looking into them and you come to a different conclusion, at least you spend the time looking into them. You don't have to agree with me. It's I don't know. It's just one of those things where I think that we do that a lot. And you know what? You know why I say we? Because I did that. I absolutely did that. I had all kinds of opinions, but I had never done the work ever. And my wife and I, my wife was the same way. And we both looked at each other and sometimes, we look back and we're like, man, I'm embarrassed at myself for having said some of the things that I have said, and not to anybody, not in front of anybody, just to myself. Because I don't need other people to think that I'm perfect and everything I say is gold and all the things. Like, I don't need that external validation. But what I do need is to look back and go, man, some of the things that I've said were completely ridiculous, and I truly believe them. I did, but I didn't have the willful investment needed to have those opinions. And so now you're embarrassed at your own processing, so to speak, right? And how far off from a target you can find yourself if you do that. It's really interesting when it comes to the brain too, because we make stuff up all the time. You start thinking about something, and all of a sudden there's a little gap, and you're gonna inherently make it up. You're not making it up nefariously or willfully wanting to mislead yourself or anything like that. But in order to make sense of whatever it is that you are saying, you need to polish up, that little piece here that's missing. And instead of filling it up with actual time spent doing the work, often we'll just make it up, and we'll draw some sort of conclusions. And if you ever been in any relationship, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, how did you come up to this conclusion? Like, all of those things are absolutely not connected one bit. Like, how do you connect all of those things to create this massive issue that we're currently not having because it's not even real, you know? And I I think that we do that with almost everything.
We absolutely do. And, a while ago, you were on the show and you brought up fractals. I think somebody brought up fractals. Anyway, it made me think of, connect the dots. You just follow the line around and, oh, look, it's a dinosaur, right? But if there are only two dots, if you have no information in between the start and the finish, you're going to draw a straight line. It's when you start to add dots, you start to add new information, you start to add new pieces in between the start and the finish that start to create an actual image. And I think this is what this is what the collective does, is that we just offer up more dots to the situation. And then it's up to people, I guess, to figure out where to put them and how to align them and what to think based on that. Shaun, you got any points?
I do. So I'm going to raise a case study now that Seb hit me with just the other day. And what Seb had done, thoughtfully, generously, kindly, like through the goodness of his heart, he'd spent some time, a long time, I suppose, given that it's been a couple of months since Seb and I just hung out together in 3D. He'd taken some time to do some research on a subject that is quite personal to me. And Seb has probably the clearest picture of the subject at hand, and that is the suicide of my younger brother. And so Seb had sent me, after doing all of this research based on some specifics of the story, he'd sent me about a 12.5 minute long video where he outlined and I say about, it was almost precisely 12.5 minutes. He'd done enough research and created a compelling enough case with supporting infrastructure that he laid out a case study that argued or created a position that made sense to some degree of a moment in time that was handled poorly by the religious institution at hand at that moment. And so I'm not going to get into the details or the specifics of things, but suffice to say, Seb spent a boatload of time researching and then a boatload of time recording. And my response to him when I listened to the 12.5 minute long video was not like, I didn't do a song and dance. I didn't like break out a trumpet and play a solo. I didn't do anything that shot fireworks up to make the moment like magnificent. What I did do was like neutrally thank him for the effort that he made and then change the subject to a little bit more lighthearted sort of moment. And so the reason that I did that, because Seb and I go back a ways. We've done a bunch of things together, intellectually, spiritually, physically, all the things, all the domains. I feel like, and this is where your friends have to know you. Like, I hope that, Seb knows me well enough that my response to him was how I am. That's how I respond. It wasn't a case of I didn't want to respond in a certain way. I responded the way that Shaun would. But I had to respond that way to then think about things, to synchronize on it, to let it bubble up, to introspect, to give it the time that Shaun needs to give it in order to better not only understand it, but to better reply. And so here's your reply, Seb. So thank you for taking the time to do what you did. Very few people in my life have done those kind of things. And it's important that people do those kind of things for other people, because I can look back in time and count on one hand the amount of times that anything like that has ever happened in respect to this particular moment. And so if not for Seb doing that, it's not that I would lose faith in mankind, of course, but if not for that, then I wouldn't have these bright sort of standout milestone moments to think, man, there's hope for mankind. There's hope for humanity, because there's enough humanity out there that we can solve anything if we try hard enough, if we make an effort, if we show enough compassion, if we engage with enough love or conviction or discipline or focus or the righteousness of the moment. If we do it right, then this world could be a better place. But it doesn't happen often enough. In fact, it happens so rare, I can count it on one hand in my life. And so, these things that our friends do for us, they can operate in the silence. Like this moment wouldn't occur for anyone else out there except for Seb and I 24 hours ago, kind of thing. But now that I'm raising it publicly, it now exists out there for all the other brains that are listening to it, and realize that, man, if you know someone who's got like a big thing from their past that no one has ever like tried to be helpful at, you should think about that. Because I know a lot of people look at me and think that I've got a few things figured out and that I don't have like stuff that bugs me or whatever. Well, I do. I'm no different than anyone else out there. I'm just a freaking human. And I struggle with a pile of things. And my close friends know that there's things that I don't like to do and there's things that I don't like to talk about. But they help me through it. And so, irrespective of what anyone thinks about me out there, I can say this for sure, that I am no different from you. And perhaps one difference in this moment is that I am confident enough to say it out loud that we all got to do better. We all have to reach out to our either close friends or acquaintances and see how we can help them in a way that you think they've never been helped before. And that doesn't mean that you got to turn into an instant therapist. It just means that you, the listener, has something unique about you that you were put on this planet for. And that moment could be today if you sit and think about it. That moment could be you reaching out to someone who could use your help. And I don't mean like shoot up the fireworks help. I just mean like be helpful.
This is the underlying principle of the entire show, right? To be helpful, to offer assistance when needed. And you made me think about the humanity in any one given moment, especially when you're dealing with not just people you care about, but your community. You're the people on the street and the human being that is literally beside you. You need to look at them as like, as you would yourself. This is the old school golden rule, right? It's to treat others how you want to be treated. That doesn't mean that you're gonna be treated that way. It just means that that's the way you would want someone else to engage with you with on that level. And I think that's where we're at. This is what the beautiful part about the collective is that the community that's been built, the people that are involved, the ideas that are shared, all come from a shared humanity within the moment of just trying to be helpful, trying to be another human being rather than whatever labels we want to put in front of ourselves. Now, I have a couple comments and some questions here, but any other thoughts before we jump in?
Yep. Just a quick one. I threw out, not a challenge. It wasn't a challenge. I just threw out a comment along the lines of sit down today and think about how you specifically are unique in this moment to be able to help another human, that maybe you're the only person that can. And so think about that. But I should have also added this piece, that the reason that Seb could do that for me, and maybe no one else could do it, who knows? Maybe someone else should try today. But maybe the reason that Seb can do it is because he's a strong, confident man. That he doesn't feel like he needs to do it in a way that is braggadocious. He just did it cool as hell. Because I can maybe think of only a handful of people who could have done it as well as he did. And usually for me, when I say could have done it that way, It means that I've got to have enough history with them and I've got to have enough connection with them that they can get away with it. And I say that like get away with it because if it's the wrong person chirping at me the wrong way, they're not going to get away with it. And so I say get away with it and not get away with it to establish that there are extremes in these moments where you can totally blow it. And there are situations where you can move the needle so big that it kind of almost helps the planet. But you can't just step into these moments thinking that you got it, because the extremes can happen really quickly in these moments where they are potent emotions and are potent outcomes. So Seb stepped into it right, and he could do that because I respect him. And the reason I respect him is because he's freaking done the work. And I don't mean just his homework, I mean like his life work. So if you heard me say go help someone today, just take stock of who you are and what you know and what you've done, and don't try to overextend your hand in a way that you aren't capable of extending. Keep it real. You can put your hand out this much and help someone. You don't have to do it a mile away. Don't outlive your abilities, as it were. Seb played it right because his life's work allowed him to play it right. If he would have done that like a month ago, it might not have flown. If he'd have done it a year ago, it might not have flown. And that is a interesting proposition to anyone out there, to think that one day can make a difference. 24 hours ago, if something hadn't have occurred in your life to give you the wisdom to be able to do it right 24 hours from now, one day can make all the difference. So I'm saying be helpful, but don't be so over eager to be helpful today that you either do it too fast or you overextend yourself.
Very good point. Seb, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, just reinforcing that, like I would have never tried that had Shaun and I not had a certain moment that we had when we were here together. I would have been tempted to, and I may have hinted at it and maybe went with a lot less velocity. But because there was a connection there, I knew that he knew how I felt. So no matter what I say on that piece of paper, and no matter what kind of emotional reaction he gets out of it, he would understand what my underlying or fundamentally what my heart posture is in relation to this. So, and you can't erase that. Once you know how the person feels about a certain subject, and you know it with such clarity that there is no questioning. And that's almost like, and we could extrapolate this in the leadership realm, when you start having a leader that established their character so often that you just know that no matter what they're asking, there has to be an underlying reason why it's happening, because you know them, you know their character, and that is not who they are, so there is something that's happened here to make that happen. And so this can be extrapolated in all kinds of realm. But what Shaun is saying, and that I'm jumping on, is just the right connection at the right time with the right person, right? Don't overthink it too much, because obviously you're just gonna bring yourself into a stall. You don't have to be into a stall, and you can address things with a level of holdback that allow you to engage a little bit to get a feel for what the response is like as well, and then you can kind of start building out your help, so to speak. And so I think one of the risk in assessing those two things is I'm not doing anything, because it's terrifying. It's a terrifying prospect, but it is the people around you that are extremely meaningful. They absolutely deserve it. They absolutely deserve it. And you absolutely deserve to have the best relationship with those people as you possibly can. And there is a small piece of that's a little bit self-serving, in that it makes me feel better to try to help in that context. And the relationship grows, on both ends. And so just it's all about meaningful actions, guys. Like, we all know this. We can have all the conversations in the world, but at the end of the day, we have to put our actions where our mouth is.
Could not agree more. You guys are just nailing it. I got one comment here I want to touch on, and then I have a question for you guys. But Dan C jumped in here a little bit earlier, and he said, "Yeah, I remember that episode was talking about the fractals." That's when I realized I took too many hits to the head through my career. And Ethos and Arrows Project jumped on the Instagram site, said, "Clean shaven today." I'm noticing nice. But this is the question I have for you, because we were talking about the firmware upgrades that we used to talk about, and the development of self, and the just the being able to build relationships with other people that are meaningful and well defined. What do you think the collective has taught you overall, like as an entity within your past now? You guys have both been on a number of shows now, externally to the collective as well as within. What has the collective itself, the show, taught you about yourself? That's what I want to know. Shaun, I'm going to come to you first.
So my boys reminded me of this like not too long ago, and it was when the show was first kicking off, and I'd show you if I flip my camera around, but I won't. My office that I'm sitting in right now has an open door. There's no door there. So I've got to hang like these big sound absorbing blankets on some hooks just above the door. I've often commented that I would like a bank vault door with retinal scan access that only I have, but somehow that's not flying in my family right now. So I've got this open door. And before I bought the sound absorbing blankets, again, at the start of the show, I'd look at my family and say, "Don't make a peep. Be quiet. I'm on a podcast. You got to be quiet." And like the family was tiptoeing around, and I was making it a big deal, and I couldn't settle in because the family wasn't settled. I wasn't settled. They were like, a fork would drop in the kitchen, and I'd be on the podcast, and I'd be like this, bam, like, are we under effective enemy fire? And so like I was making it a big deal because it was so new. And I was trying to control so many variables, and I was trying to not make it best for me. I was trying to make it best for the listener, and I didn't even know how. And so, like those early formative episodes, I was a freak. Like I couldn't settle down because I couldn't put it out the way that it needed to be put out for everyone else, or at least that's what I thought. But now, I mean, like the family could be putting rounds down range in the kitchen right now, like firing however many rounds off. It doesn't much matter. They could be throwing distraction devices in the living room, and it wouldn't bother me. And here's why. Because like 1 billion episodes later, I just exist in this moment. I don't sweat the details. All the distraction devices in the kitchen, whatever, man. Like I'm just here with you guys having this conversation. And then when the podcast is done, I'll go into the kitchen and see how much damage is being done. But beyond that, as I exist in my office with my little sound absorbing blankets, I'm just here for the combo. I'm here for the wisdom. I'm here for this precise second. And that just is an example of how many iterations it takes sometimes to settle into the moment. For anyone out there who's thinking about starting a podcast, and I've been hit up by a few people over like this year, a dozen people have said, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Do you have any tips?" Yeah, I do. But the podcast isn't long enough for me to hand them out. Just try to figure out why you're here, settle into it, and play the long game consistently so that eventually this moment feels authentic. Because on day one, it won't feel authentic, and you'll be trying to be authentic, but it won't fly. These things just take time, so settle in.
Well, that is a great tip, to be able to take time and settle in, but you didn't actually answer the question. I'm going to hold you to it. What did you learn most about yourself over the process of this?
Fair enough. What I've learned is that to do this live or to do these podcasts, you've just got to be in the moment. You can't worry too much about what you're going to say next. You can't show up with a big agenda. You can't, the moment that you finish talking, you can't go to mute and then start thinking, oh, I wish I would have said this. Oh, I wish I would have said that. Next time I get to talk, I'm going to deliver my magnum opus. You cannot do that in podcasting. But in the early days, that's what I kind of thought you had to do. So you asked me what I've learned. I've learned to just freaking chillax.
Love it. Seb, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to jump on that bandwagon, but it's pretty much the same for me as well. It's like you need to have a certain sort of the pride kind of has to go, right? Because you're mixing it up with some very, very capable individuals that are bringing all kinds of wisdom. And I think as soon as you don't feel threatened by that, the amount of learning that you can do is absolutely exponentially increased. And the reason why it is because anything that you perform at high intensity has a greater impact. And that's what makes, for those of you out there that have been in combat, that's what makes the experience so absolutely, defining. It is because of the intensity that is associated with it. And so it's one thing to have a conversation in the living room. It's another thing to jump on the platform with a bunch of savages and be like, man, I'm not even on my game today. I couldn't even find, I have 2 different color socks. And now I got to sit here and have a philosophical conversation with people that have spent a lifetime questioning everything. Like, that's just going to be brutal, And I think at the end of the day, for me, is just about, hey man, get in there and do your best, and get in there and try to bring a little bit of value. And sometimes there's a person that brings a ton of value. And sometimes for me to bring value is to let that person that brings a lot of value speak more. And so, it was just an interesting realization. But what it was as well is that I actually don't care if I come across as vulnerable. I actually don't care if I come across as sensitive or none of those things bug me. And so I actually have nothing to prove, and I feel that there were times in my life where I felt I might have, that I might have needed to either prove something or engage in a way that reflected in a certain way on me. Whereas now, just like Shaun, I'm in the moment, and sometimes I have days where, things flow better, and other times I have days where I have 2 different color socks, and I take a bit of a backseat, or I try to do my best with the limited bandwidth. And I think that metaphorical application to life skills has been very, very beneficial, because just like you do on the mats, and just like you do in sparring or whatever, you're going to have days that are really good and days that are really bad. And the idea is to make your really bad days sensibly better than you would have if you didn't engage in those things. At least for me, that's how I see it.
I'm down. I was thinking, the thing that I learned most about it was, I said this on Wednesday, was the fact that I could listen. I could engage with people and just listen to what they have to say instead of having to get my point across all the time. But I got to update it now, because what you said, Seb, the ability to not be threatened, that is such a key concept in this, because Shaun and I have said this a number of times now, we could probably have a conversation with anybody, anywhere, about anything, with anything going on around us, the fact that we've had enough reps to do this now. But initially, there was this, I felt a requirement to kind of justify my presence. What am I doing here? Why am I here? Well, I have to then now show everybody that I'm here for a reason, rather than just being here. The reason I'm here is because I'm here. And that is the simplicity of the whole thing, which is engage every moment with your best. Ask questions. Those questions, because you're curious, are going to be good questions because you're curious. You don't have to ask questions because you need to ask questions. You should be curious about what the answer is. I want to know what that thing is. And that makes it a good question, rather than be like, oh, if I ask this, am I going to look dumb? Or if I ask that, is it going to make me sound a certain way? Just go give her, man. Like, just give her. John, what do you got?
but you've always done better on the podcast when you just try not to be too crafty. And same for me. Same for every guest. If you show up trying to be crafty, if you want to be Jason Bourne in the conversation, it ain't gonna go well. It ain't gonna go well. And it's not because anyone who's on the conversation at that particular podcast is going to make you a target because you're trying to be a oratorial Jason Bourne. You won't be targeted for it, but what you will come across as is trying too hard, being inauthentic, trying to be too crafty, trying to flare out, as I like to think of it. And I've done it. I might do it tomorrow. I might do it on the next show. I might be doing it right now. Who knows? It is something that you have to keep a constant eye on when you're in a live podcast, is not try to be something that you're not. Just try to keep it real. And it is freaking difficult because as humans, we want to be perceived as a thing. And if the thing in our head is an image that isn't synchronized with who you really are, like that trying too hard piece, it becomes evident to everyone around you except yourself, because you're trying so hard to be something that you're not. You get lost in your own nonsense. So it's tricky, man. Podcasting is tricky. And, we've come a long way for sure. I'm more interested in how to look a year from now. That's what always drives me, the curiosity of what's around the corner. What Shaun is around the corner a year from now? What Chance is around the corner? What Seb is around the corner? Those are the things that fascinate me. Not what we were then and what we are now. It's what we'll be 24 hours from now. Those are things that really interest me. But I want to throw a little twist in this point right now and just say that social media is the example, or podcasting is the example. When you're trying to do something in a show, or when you're trying to do something on social media, whatever idea you've got in your head, it might make sense to you, but it won't make sense to anyone else, perhaps, unless you give context. So I'm going to give an example right now. This morning, before I jumped on the podcast, I was hitting the heavy bag, and I decided that my job today, my task, my mission, my chore today was to spinning back kick the heavy bag and kick it hard enough that it would tip over to here, but then fall back naturally by itself. Not kick it so hard that it got to here and then fell over. Because it's a drag. Then you got to walk over. You got to pick the heavy bag up. It just wastes time. It's just inconvenient. And that's not really what I wanted. I wanted to take it to the tipping point. The tipping point. No further, no less. And so I got some that were perfect tip. I kicked some over, which was irritating. And I hit some that were like barely moved. I was like, what the heck? I'm all over the ice this morning. But no one will know until now that I had a task, and the task was just to take it to the tipping point, no further, no less. The rest of the video it'll have no context, and it'll have no meaning except to me. So what people will see is some slow-mo on a heavy bag, and they'll make their own determinations from that point. But my determination was made before I started hitting the heavy bag. My win conditions were already set, but no one knows them. And so that is what's interesting about social media. If you're performative, then your win conditions, if they're not understood outside of your own mind, can be misconstrued. And so, question to you guys. In these moments where you're putting up any social media, do you want to use more words or less words when you put up the social media?
That is a good question. I struggled with this last night. I put a post out, and I want to use less, but I recognize that those get it requires people to know you better. The less words you know, the less words you put out there. Whereas I feel that some explanation is more required, for people that don't know me. So for social media, I add more words, but I would prefer to use less to just with the people that I know. Seb, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, dude. I have some genetic predisposition. I'm French, so everything is longer and it's not always a benefit, whether I'm speaking or I'm writing. I know that sometimes I take a lot longer to get to the actual point, and to a certain extent, those are things I keep my eye on. So especially if there's multiple people on a platform, and I'm trying not to hijack the whole show, and I fail miserably at times. But I do love to write, and it's more about my love to write than it is about how it's going to be received or any of that. So I do love to write. I do love to write meaningful posts. I gave myself a mission, many years ago in 17 when I first got to Instagram, and everybody was making fun of me for years before that for not being on Instagram. But I was busy running ops, and I was listening to Metallica in my office and not caring about social media so much. I was busy working. But eventually, when I decided to engage in a social media piece, which is the case every time I try to engage in something, I will actually give it the proper time and effort. And so at that point, when I made a decision, the decision was this: none of this is going to be perfect, and there always will be room for interpretation. But I wanted to have sort of a post version of the collective, if that makes sense, where I bring some level of meaning and I trigger some reflection. That's all I wanted. It wasn't about live your life like my post and you are good to go. Like we got this figured out, because we don't. None of us do, right? There's levels to meaning, and there's so many interpretations, whatever. But the fact is if the bulk of the people that follow my account could extract something, whether in agreement or disagreement, on a post that I was posting, and spearhead some introspection of their own, and perhaps even engage and project something of their own, so that we can all kind of learn from and come back full circle. That was the point that I was trying to make. But I do feel that sometimes I just want to write nothing, or have an hashtag, that says hashtag used to be something or whatever, and I'm totally kidding, because I love where I'm at in my life, and there's
Hashtag it's science.
exactly. Yeah. That's one of my favorite ones. But, sometimes, and those are rare occasions. On rare occasions, I will do that. I don't. And what I found through my social media, and this isn't, I don't care if I got 62 likes or 9,000 likes. I actually don't. I know some people might feel that that's disingenuous, but actually I don't. But one of the things that I notice is if I put up an old school tactical picture or anything tactical, it gets like a gazillion likes. But if I put something in certain other fields, it gets 40, and that's fine. That's totally cool, because it's me in the moment and what I feel like posting, what I feel is relevant for me, and understanding that this life is about 360 degrees and more. And it's about engaging in all of the things. And so one of the contention that I have is to present a certain part of you that becomes the whole part of you. And for me, I try to well round it, so to speak. And this is the very reason why I engage in the Poetic Savagery project, for example, which was, how do we bring all of these dimension to a human being, to a variety of other human beings, so they don't think that it's all getting up at 4:30 and eating ammo, because that in itself creates a version of you that isn't going to be the person that you are aspiring to be. It's that simple, because you're missing dimensions, right? So my goal with my social, again, to make a very short story super long, has always been the same: to bring meaning, to bring some level of value, to be authentic, and to show a multi-dimension, which is precisely me, not a multi-dimension that I'm creating, just having that. And for people to say it's okay to have this as a underlying sort of principle thing. So your account, you are a X, Y, and Z, or whatever, and you have your crowd that's following you because they love your stuff. But what else are you about? What are all the complexities, and what are all the things, I just want to know, like, what are you about, kind of thing. And so again, this is me, and this is how my mind works when it comes to social.
I dig it. I I have a thought on this, and I just want to hit this comment before I jump into it. Dan C jumped in here. He said some of the best podcasts are just you two chatting and vibing. Wednesdays are a perfect example. No offense, Seb. Yeah. Um, I got the interesting opportunity through my life. I worked in a video game store for a number of years, and when I first started, we were renting like Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis games. Like this is back in the early 90s. Very early PC games and stuff like that. And at that point in time, a lot of the games themselves were two-dimensional, right? You just have the flat surface, and they had to build a third dimension through depth of story, gameplay, music, sound, all these things, all these pieces that they put together. Over time, as the PlayStation, as the technology evolved, as PlayStation came out, and we were able to utilize discs and then larger capacity computers and so on and so forth, the graphics started to develop into the third dimension. And the thing that was lost from that was that the story started to diminish because it didn't need to be told anymore. The gameplay started to lag behind because it was more time was spent in developing that third dimension of visual sight. I think this happens a lot of times with podcasts. It happens a lot of times with conversations. Sometimes is that the superficial, the visual side of it, especially with social media, right? Like that becomes they try to flesh everything out. I know I'm guilty of this as well. We try to flesh out the image and by doing that, it actually removes the depth of the other side of it, right? The storyline. It removes the understanding of history and all these other pieces to it. And I think that's part of the evolution of a human being anyway, right? We try to be something. We try to create an image for ourselves and then realize, well, that's only one side of it. And then you have to stop and think and go, well, what other side do I want to engage? And to your point earlier, Seb, when you used the quote, people die at 30 and then physically die at 70, I think that's where people get stuck, is they're just like, I don't know what else to build. I have this superficial concept of who I am now. And then they just wait for death at that point. But what do you guys think? Is that a viable view on it, Shaun? Your view?
So, funnily enough, last night I was thinking about my life and in the shower, believe it or not. And it was a very, about a 30-second thought. And I'm just going to lay this out here real quick. So, when I left JTF2, I went immediately to the Ontario Police College, where I started filling in some gaps in my understanding of the world. And those gaps were specific to things like policies, procedures, use of force, and a variety of different things that I had an understanding of in JTF2, but I didn't have a deeper understanding that I feel I needed at that time. So I poured myself into the Ontario Police College, learned a bunch of things. Bam, I move out of the Ontario Police College straight into computer system engineering. I do a bunch of that. I teach, I write a book. And then next thing you know, I'm overseas doing international security consultant. And here was my thought in the shower. Man, how did I end up in Ecuador flying a CEO in on a helicopter in order to better understand not only the layout of the facility, but then do like a deep penetration into their computer network in order to retrieve ... and then fly out of Ecuador back to ... Like, how did my life become that? I don't talk about a bunch of things that I've done in the past on deep penetration at various sites and deep in the sense of not only human, but also digital. Like, I've done some things in my life that make me shake my head sometimes. I was shaking my head in the shower because I thought, how the hell did I get into that position? Here's how I got in there. I just kept moving from thing to thing and putting them together. And we're talking about dimensions. That's why I'm raising this subject. Because if you are one dimensional, you'll never get to like fly into another country and do bonkers things. You just won't. You won't. But if that's what you want to do, start working on your dimensions. Start putting things together. Start connecting the dots, as Chance said. And so, what I managed to do in my life at some point was go into a country and like almost act like Mr. Wolf. You know what I'm saying? Like the cleaner. I just showed up And it didn't matter what the problem was immediately in front of me, whether it was digital or organic, it did not matter. I had all the skills to take care of that job. And so that's kind of a well-rounded individual when you can operate across multiple domains. But before I joined the army, that was not me. I had no domains. I've gathered domains over the years that allow me to get off a plane and do almost anything, at least at one point in my life. Now I'm super freaking old, and best thing I can do is podcasting. And so, what is interesting, again, is what you're capable of is what you string together or what you connect within your life. And those aren't just skill sets, those aren't just industries. They are actually another thing, which is networks. The networks that you create in life are one of your resources. And so I don't think many people take that into consideration. Multiple networks across multiple domains allow me to connect with people that uh, help me solve things that I can't solve myself. And so the challenge to everyone else out there is this, that whatever domain you're in right now, go find another domain and start connecting it to your single domain so that you have more three-dimensional abilities.
And dig it. And I want to, again, reach out to anybody, all the people that are watching right now. I want to hear what you guys think about any of this. So by all means, drop in the comments. We can engage it for sure. Seb, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, this feeds perfectly into the concept of how you define yourself and how dangerous that is. And we know being very, very unidimensional is extremely dangerous. Anything happens that take that away from you, and now you're chasing. But it also brings to bear the fact that all of the things that you were once engaged in and perhaps have performed at higher levels and sometimes at higher intensities are still a part of who you are. In fact, they can now be reallocated, and so you never really sort of lose yourself in that. And I think that there is a risk in losing yourself when you're very good at something and do it at a high intensity once you no longer do it. And I don't care how much you try not to let it define you, at some point the lines will be blurred up because we're humans, and this is what happens. And so the concept of multidimension is a concept and a filter that should be applied to a variety of different things. If you're looking at something at face value and you think that looks easy, you're probably missing a whole bunch of information. If you're looking at a workout on the gym floor and you say, well, we're going to engage in it, how many people always say this looked a lot easier than it was because you oversimplified it? What if, this thing and that thing and the other thing? Most things in life are extremely multidimensional. And that's the beauty of it, is that there's no end to the exploration. Once you stop being curious and you stop, what happens when you stop being curious and you stop exploring? What happens is you become anxious. Anxiety just takes over, and now you're no longer exploring. We know that the fix to anxiety is exploration, and that is, probably one of the sort of it's almost like a pandemic level that we have right now for a variety of different reasons that are very multi-layered as well, or multidimensional. And so all of it makes for a better life, and all of it makes that even if you do super cool things, once you no longer do super cool things, you bring the super cool things, knowledge, skills, and ability to other super cool things. You don't lose yourself in that.
What do you got, Shaun?
So on that super cool thing, having a bunch of super cool things in your hip pocket allows you to, as an example, be in a different country, walk into an office. You're there to help administrate their IT department. And so when you step in and start breaking into their computer network to do a deep penetration analysis to see what their weaknesses are, while you're doing that, you can also be doing human intel gathering. Why that guy at the water cooler saying those things, why that person is having that confidential information laying easily available on their open desk. Or, if you've got a few domains in your pocket, you can saunter your way through a location for half a day, and then at the end of the day, write a report that would turn that institution inside out. It's having the ability to see things that other people can't see because they haven't connected enough domains together to see the thing directly in front of their nose. It's like a magical power, but it's a magical power that is freaking hard earned. It's like you start off as a young wizard, Harry Potter, getting on that train for the first time, not knowing anything. If you work hard enough for enough years in enough domains, you'll gather almost magic. You'll see things that other people don't see as they're staring at it with you. You just see the world differently because you're seeing it through multiple lenses of information gathering rather than a single lens. And so again, not that I'm special, but I was brought up in a way through a number of industries that when I walked into a location that I was sent to, I was operating on enough domains that I was able to gather and adjust that circumstance in a way that created positive outcomes that, quite frankly, no one else had been able to up till that point. Now, maybe a year later, or maybe half a year later, or maybe 3 months later, a guy like me would be able to slide in and do the exact same thing. But they hadn't, or they didn't. I was it at that time. And so I'm just an example of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who can do the exact same thing currently, this moment. And so building yourself up literally through multiple domains until you can step into something and feel comfortable, or at least semi-confident that you're the right person for the job. That just takes a really long time, but it is so worthwhile.
Yeah, I'm picturing, the Predator, the vision changes every time you're like, I'm going to look it through the infrared, oh, ultraviolet. Okay, now I'm going to look at this lens, and this great image of Shaun walking into place as the Predator, like scanning people and scanning the room. I
But you
got a
guys do
comment.
that, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Actually, I do. I mean, when I walk in a room, I do scan someone really quick, like I'm the
Mhm.
Predator. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to do anything bad. It's just that I like to know what's going on in a room. I like to know what a person is. I run a number of filters on them in about 0.5 seconds. And it's not about like, why are they scowling at me? It's their vibe, man. Like I'm trying to read them in a filter that I don't think a lot of humans use as a filter. There are filters that we all have readily available to us, but those filters don't exist unless you start playing with them, practicing, flicking them in front of your vision to see what you see. And so filters do or don't exist depending on how you play with filters.
Yes, but I have also watched you friggin' try laser target lock on people as well. So I'm gonna picture you as the Predator from now on. This is fantastic. I got a comment on the Instagram side. Highlands Hunter jumped here. He said, agree with social media being forward facing and subject to a narrow set of optics. Most social media is a highlight reel. We often tailor our messages to suit that narrow viewpoint. Knowing Shaun's history, while it was a very high speed, low drag, the fact that he is a published author, mountain biker, and dad probably doesn't garner much following. And this is something that you and I talked about quite a bit, was the fact that, like, what sells, what gets people to come watch the show is former GTF2, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with Seb, right? When I do descriptions, I'm trying to find the things that people are going to perk up to and be like, ooh, I'm going to go watch that dude. And a lot of it sometimes comes from those high speed, low drag friggin' jobs, right? Where you're like a secret spy, secret squirrel, international man of mystery, right? That type of thing gets people to perk up. But I'm like, hey, he's a father of two and he mountain bikes around the world. And like, that's a smaller market group, I guess, from there.
So you said something there, international man of mystery. My freaking buddy Marlon down in Southern California, who I was on the teams with, calls me I Mom He calls me the international man of mystery. And it's not that he doesn't know my background. He knows as much, if not more, than most people on this planet about the various industries that I've been in. But he still calls me an international man of mystery. But, we all can be. I don't think of myself as that. So let's clear that up. But I think we all can be, in a way, an I mom, because you can. This life is yours to run. And anyone who thinks that that is not true has missed the boat. And I know that everyone has like challenges and has holdbacks, and it's not that easy for me, bro. I know, I've heard it a lot. But your day is yours to make. Your life is yours to choose. How you forge it is up to you. You've got the hammer, the fire's in front of you. Start freaking swinging. Make it what you want, honestly. And I mean, put that on repeat. Swing, fire, swing, fire. create a few domains and then go kick that ass. It's so easy, but all the white noise, all the details, all the distractions, that's what holds us back. And ultimately, you'll never get anywhere unless you start believing that you can kick that ass.
Yes. And you said something that I want to throw back at you here. You said it, you're talking about easy. And I think we have a misconstrued concept of simple is easy. And it is a simple choice. It's a simple choice to swear or not on the show. It's a simple choice to talk about certain things or not. It's a simple choice to do your best in every moment. That does not make it easy. And so when people do say, oh man, it's just not that easy for me. It's not a question of easy. The answer is simple. No one said anything about being easy. The answer is don't do this. Don't engage in that. Do your best in every moment. The answer is simple, but that does not make it easy in any way, shape, or form. Blackwater Technical Diving jumped in here and said 1 foot in front of the other. That's a lot of it. Is whatever happens kind of happens, and then you have to be able to learn from it. Dan C jumped in here. My wonderful wife reacts to my observations in public. It never goes away. Yeah, once you get taught some general situational awareness as well, you start to look around for more stuff. It's something that I teach my kids, as something that I know my wife and I actually have fun with. We like to people watch. And so we have a lot of time when we're looking around at the world around us, and we can engage with each other about that. So other people, Seb, you got any thoughts on anything Shaun has dropped?
Yeah, I started playing with a lot of things over the years, and I think that when we're engaging in people watching, and I love to do it as much as the next guy. I think that sometimes we're watching ourselves, right? Like there's some sort of mirror that's kicking there, and sometimes you have a certain amount of reactions in relation to this. So one of the things I started really sort of toying with is changing the image that I project to see if it changes the image that I perceive. And it almost always does, And I think that for me, as somebody that has had a very long history of being discriminated against, at some point, I think I lost track to when I started creating the situation, right? In the sense that my defense mechanism was up and I was projecting something that led to the reciprocation of exactly what I didn't want, And so, there's something to toy with. One of the things that I'm really doing nowadays, and it's kind of fun to play with, is if somebody gives me the old up and down stare with like the super intense 1,000-yard stare of I'm way tougher than you, all those things, which there's plenty of people way tougher than me. Plus, I'm an amputee. but what I started toying with is reciprocate love and very positive emotions. And so a massive smile, a massive I am, and and what you're seeing is this tilt shift, and so now you start finding that, say, whereas before you would have walked into a crowd, you would have had, say, 70% of people look at you weird. Now you have 7% looking at you weird, and so what did you just learn? You just learned that you are creating some of the outcomes that you are not wanting. And so sometimes, and as humans, because we are wired for survival, and because we have, to a certain extent, to have some walls in order to not be, mowed over at every opportunity, we forget that our exteriorization produces sometimes the outcome that we don't want. And so playing with that too is cool when it comes time to be able to be in an observer role, so to speak.
I like that. Shaun, what do you got?
It is cool, but you know why you've got that advantage, or not advantage, why you've got this this opportunity currently, is because you're in a small town. Just like in Roslyn, it's a small town. And when you walk through a small town, you start to recognize people, they start to recognize you, and you actually get a bit of a clearer read on who you are, what you're putting out, because you'll see people time and time again. You'll start to form a pattern. Like you walk through a big city, and if 70% of the population is giving you the stink eye because you're wearing a shirt like this, then you actually don't, you get a read, but then they're gone and you'll never see them again for the rest of your life, kind of thing. But in a smaller town, you get a pattern read, and then you get to reinforce that pattern by seeing that person again, maybe 5 days later, or whatever the case is. You'll get some repetition of the pattern. And then you'll really get a better read on the person, on is it me or is it them? Is it this sidewalk? Is it the weather? What is it? And so, like, I get it in my own town if I'm wearing a shirt like this, if I'm riding, casually up the road, or I stop and lean against a wall. If someone walks by me that doesn't know me and gives me the stink eye for whatever reason, I'll just neutrally observe them and I'll wonder, what is with that dude? Like, is it me or is it him? But in a small town, you get to see that pattern sort of repeated, and then you get a bit more clarity. What do you think, Seb?
Yeah, I mean, what you said is real, but that is not the fun application of it for me. The fun application of it is exactly in the areas and the places where it's really quick and it's a very quick exchange. And so then it becomes a question of what am I projecting? Because it's a mirror, and when you walk by a mirror, a second is gone and the mirror is gone. You no longer see yourself, right? And so I think that for me, what I've really enjoyed toying with and playing with is exactly in the places where people are not expecting that, is to have that exact opposite reaction. No, I'm not on my phone. No, I'm not disregarding everybody and just walking and owning the world as if everybody around me is accessory to my life. But what I'm interested in is, what am I projecting? And this is what makes horses so powerful, obviously, right? And having horses is a great a giant mirror. As you're coming out of on the porch and they're fleeing away from you at high rate of speeds, you're like, okay, go back in, reset, recalibrate, go back out and see if I can get a different outcome. But I think that it's especially for men. I feel with men, there is an inherent sort of sizing up that almost always occur, and I quite frankly, it's very misleading, for one, and second, sometimes it interferes with building meaningful relationship. It just does, and I think that no, I'm not going to build a relationship with absolutely everybody I walk by, and no, not everybody that I walk by is going to have it in them to say smile back if I smile. But say if 7 out of 10 people do it, which is generally about the case, then what am I learning about myself here? Is the reality that I'm projecting, is the reality that I'm seeing. If this becomes your world, you're responsible for it. Like you just are. And so you may act a certain way in response to how certain things were done or how you perceive certain things to be, but you're proliferating those things by continuing to act the same way. So I guess my advice is just play with that a bit to see if what you see is what you get, or if what you see is what you're projecting.
I dig it. That it happens quite a bit to me, actually, and I attribute this to my height of quite a bit. So a lot of people, I see this often where people try to look at me in the eyes, and then as soon as they notice that I'm actually looking directly at them, and smile or not, I see a lot of people like snap their head for this fast. But the fun part about it is that actually Shaun brought this point up at one point on a podcast. He was talking about another guy that he had engaged with online, saying that, man, you just need to smile more. We had a whole show on it at one point. But it hit me to the point of like, man, I don't smile. I walk around very I think neutral, but I've been told it's quite a stern face. And because I'm taller than most people, there's a natural reaction to most people to try to curl up a little bit. But the moment I started just walking around and smiling naturally, like what I did was I had to, instead of just walking around with a plastered on smile, which doesn't look natural, I started thinking about, what am I enjoying in this moment? And the sun is beautiful, the sky is gorgeous, the grass is really green, whatever it is. And I would smile about it. And that changed the way people interacted with me instantly. There's actually an example. My wife and I, she does all the things with the boys at the school. She does all the field trips and all the PTA meetings and all the things. They have a hard time remembering who she is, but everybody at that school knows who I am, and they know who Arden's dad is. But I stand out a little bit as well. So I think that's part of it. But you're right in the fact that we create the universe. And if I'm constantly thinking about all the things that I really enjoy about my universe that I've created for myself, that transposes onto the community around me. And if I'm always enjoying things, then most people will engage with you in a better manner overall. John, what do you got?
Though this doesn't apply to you or maybe anyone that I know, it did pop into my head that you can also run your program as you describe, Chance, but be thoughtless, be like almost, a robot of goodness.
Yeah, like disengaged.
For lack of a better term. You're just bumbling through life as a happy person, but unaware and immune to life's problems. Maybe it's because you got no problems. Maybe it's because someone looks after your problems. Maybe you were raised on a silver platter with a silver spoon and you'll never face problems. I don't know what it is, but some people can walk through life unaware of problems in life. And, that's just never been me. And it's nobody that I know, but I do recognize that it exists. So, there's an approach to being joyful and being happy and projecting. And I don't mean inauthentically projecting, but emanating from you. You're projecting like you're just a good person. That's one thing. But then being unaware, joyfully bumbling your way through life unaware, that's a different thing, of course.
Yeah, it's the intentionality, right? Like I'm choosing in this moment to be happy. I could also choose to be very unhappy. There's lots of things I could pick up on. But if your normal natural state of being is super happy-go-lucky, yeah, those are without any actual thought or process into it. I 100% agree. Now we are almost at 2
Sorry, do you guys know any happy-go-lucky people from your former careers that just like never got taught the harsh lessons of the world, or just never faced enough trauma that they somehow managed to stay happy-go-lucky? I don't know any dudes from back in the day that I would call quote unquote happy-go-lucky.
Yeah, not from the military that I can recall. I know people not from the military that are like that, but not from anyone I know. Seb, how about you?
Oh, I think there's a ton of people that are inherently extremely positive every time they walk somewhere, and whether they're going through a rough time or whatever, they just have a tendency to be capable and to keep the darkness at bay. And that's through their actions and to the way they interact with the world and all this stuff. And I mean, I can I can rattle you off a list right now. And all those people have a lot of issues. But when they show up somewhere, they still light up the place. There's people that have everything, and they walk into a place and the place turns into a dark pit of hell. Like this is, and so I guess the point I was trying to make is just, instead of trying to control the external factors, let's try and see if we can affect the external factors by controlling us, right? And if a person is everywhere they go, they run into people with dark energy, I got some questions, right? And it's just that little level into introspection that I like to bring to the table, which is precisely a part of the collective, and this show has been all about since the very beginning, and it never ceases. That introspection never stops. And so there was an opportunity to have the conversation about the reality that you're projecting. And I believe that there's a ton of value in toying with that for people that have a propensity to think that the world is against them, right? And I was one of them. So I'm not throwing rocks in the glass house here. I was one of them for many years.
I think where I kind of blew that right now is I said, do you know a bunch of dudes from back in the day that are happy-go-lucky? I know guys that are happy, just not happy-go-lucky. And it's that happy-go-lucky where they're almost immune to everything around them. They're joyfully and unaware bumbling through life with nothing bothering them because they are not picking up on anything, that happy-go-lucky thing. Kind of like the Peter Pan, the jester.
Yeah, that's the people that choose to be happy when things are rough, and there are people that they don't even know that things are rough and they're just happy in general. But it's a beautiful point. Now we've gone kind of all over the boat here. We've talked a lot about the collective. We talked a lot about how we've changed as people, how we observe people, all these things. But any final thoughts? Anything still bubble in the back of your brain on the collective, on the community, on the show, on ourselves? Anything at all? Seb, maybe you first.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how things are going, and for me, I think there are plans in place for myself personally to bring some eyes on this show, not for the sake of self-promotion, but for the sake of understanding the true value that this show brings to the table with all the incredible guests that we've had, all the incredible conversations that we've had. And I think that for me, there's an underlying mission to bring as much attention to the show as I possibly can. And I think that for the next year coming up, that is my plan personally. And I know that Shaun and I, have plans together in that regards as well. And I know, Chance, you're very aware of that. And so, and again, it's not about if we affect one life positively, I'm in. Like, that's absolutely insane. But if we affect 100,000, that's also very good, right? And it's better in the sense that then more people are going around having had the chance to be exposed to some of the conversations that really have the potential to make your life better. And so, love where the show came from, love the beginning of the show, love all of the processes that led to what the show is today, and looking forward to what the show will be tomorrow.
Man, I love it. Shaun, any final thoughts?
Well, leave it to Seb, hey? Just freaking leave it to Seb to make me feel even more responsible for the collective. I mean, like, I take this thing serious, but Seb is always like somehow making me feel like I've got to try even harder. What's with that? Final thoughts. I would say that I'm pleased with where things are at, and it's hard to please me. But I'll be more pleased when I get to see around the corner, and the corner never arrives. So I suppose I'll never be overly pleased. But I'm happy with where things are at. We're heading in the right direction. We've done good work. And I suppose my final thought on the collective is far less about me, Chance, and Seb, and it's far more about all of the episodes in the past, all the guests that we've had, guests that'll never hear this episode, by the way. I'd just like to give a nod to them. The sometimes under-recognized, incredible humans that we've had on the show. That's been a big deal for me personally in improving as a man, as a human. As is the show we're at right now, as legit as it is, it's mostly because of the guests. We've done our best, but it's the guests that have got us here for sure. And that sense of responsibility to not let them down or not disappoint their hard efforts, or at least uphold our responsibilities so that we're giving our nod to them and their efforts.
Yeah, I agree. And the community, the people that have hung out with us, been on the show, that have watched the show, that have commented, that have done all the things, like that's the community. I mean, it's really not the three of us by any means. We're just here. We're opening the window. The window is the guests and the people that are involved. And just some numbers to throw out here. This is episode 447 of the collective in 2.5 years. This is, we have another 79 episodes of the gold mine on top of that. So we're well over 500. In general, we've had over 950 guests total. We've had over 230 unique guests as well. We have hundreds of hours of conversations on, I don't even know how many topics we've touched on, but a lot. And like you said, though, Seb, they all kind of come back to balance. But I just, it's been such a amazing ride. And I think that where we go next is just going to keep getting better and better and better. So thank you, Seb and Shaun. Thank you to all of the guests that have been on the show. Thank you to all of the people that have been part of this community. It has been awesome. And as we all continue to learn, build, and grow, see y'all next week. Chimo.
Chibo.
Thanks everybody for watching and being part of the collective. If this has sparked any thoughts or resonated with you, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us grow and keeps the conversation going. We'll see y'all next time.